Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. What a day for Utah basketball, men and women. It was a doubleheader today in the John M. Huntsman Center. And both Utah and women's and men's basketball programs got the dub. Utah women got the big win in pretty dramatic fashion. Maty Wilke's half-court heave to get the win, 76-73. It was incredible moment, an incredible game. Everything you'd expect from a rivalry game, you got it, and still Utah got the win tonight, or today, I should say, which was interesting because the game went into overtime, and as the time went on, you're wondering what in the hell's gonna go on with what's gonna happen with the men's basketball game. Is it got closer to 4, and the teams typically get out on the floor about 90 minutes before tip-off. They didn't get that today, so it was interesting, but it was a good win for the women's basketball program to get that dub, and currently sitting 6th in the Big 12. And the men's basketball team got a 99-73 win over Arizona State, and I think showed us a lot. With everything going on with the program right now, it's clear that this group of guys, they're still focused on the task at hand and focused on finishing the season the right way. And I think it was really cool to see that. And I think, too, just a really good outing by Utah fans getting out there, showing their support for the program, which I thought was really, really cool as well. So, and then also, the coaching search. Well, it's been pretty quiet, I guess, but I've gotten some updates and insights over the last 5 days, and I think Utah fans should be excited about the way that this is trending. So, let's dive into that Utah women's basketball game. So, 76-73 victory over BYU. Utah had a lead for about 39 minutes of this game. They jumped out to a comfortable lead. I believe they got out to a 10-0 start before BYU scored their first point, which was a three-pointer. And then from there, they built a lead out to 18-5. And it seemed like Utah was going to run away with this thing. But, credit to BYU, who battled back and made this, a competitive game. They kept pace with Utah throughout the first half. Utah would go on these runs to kind of rebuild their lead, and then BYU would respond with a run of their own to keep it close. And Utah could just never, put the Cougars away. So, it was a competitive game. They went into halftime with a 10-point advantage, 37-27. Maty Wilke seemed to just have her way, and Utah got good contributions, got some shots from Jenna Johnson, which was good to see. And yet, Utah's leaders, Gianna Niebkins, she was pretty quiet for most of the game until we got into the fourth quarter, and she had 2 points in the first quarter and then didn't score again until the fourth. But she came up big in that fourth and overtime period. So, coming down the stretch, Utah had, 51-43 lead with about 8 minutes left in the game. And you're thinking, okay, Utah just went on a little run, a 7-0 run to kind of build that cushion. And yet BYU, they get a layup, then they knock down a three-pointer. Utah then just couldn't. They kept creating quality looks, but just couldn't convert. And they added some free throws along the ways to preserve their lead, but just kept missing shot after shot. And again, created scoring opportunities for their leaders, Kennedy McQueen, Gianna Niebkins, and others, but just couldn't hit them. And then, Utah or BYU with about 4 minutes left in that game, got going. They hit 3 consecutive three-pointers, added a layup, which gave them a 2-point lead. Fortunately, Maty Wilke scored or converted a couple free throws to tie it back up at 59. And then Lauren Davenport for BYU knocked down a three-pointer with 23 seconds left in the game. And you're thinking 62-59. Utah's headed for a loss here in the rivalry. But Gianna Niemkens showed up big in the biggest moment, knocked down a three-pointer with 17 seconds left, and then Utah got the stop at the end of regulation to force it into overtime. And then going into overtime, Gianna Niemkens, she scored, 2, 4, 6, 8 points in overtime, including the 2 free throws to tie it back up at 73-73. And then Utah gets the defensive stop as Delaney Gibb just, continued to hit shot after shot. She was really impressive, but, Gianna Niemkens, answered. And I thought that was really good to see from her. And then again, Delaney Gibb, on the final possession, drove to the hoop, driving down the left side. She slipped, fell to the ground, lost the ball. Maty Wilke takes it the other way and heaves it at half court, banks it in. And the only other time that I've thrown up the refs, it's good, field goal kick is good, touchdown is good, celebration is when Parker Van Dyke hit the three-pointer at the end of the UCLA game. That's the only other shot that I've celebrated. Just, game winners like that are incredible, and, it was an awesome moment for the women's team, awesome moment in the Huntsman Center. Just a fantastic way to end that game. Again, it was very competitive, and so now, Utah finishes the year 21-7 overall, 12-5 in conference play. They sit 6th in the Big 12 standings, so they currently are the 6th seed in the Big 12 tournament, and they will play the winner of Kansas or Texas Tech, BYU, UCF. So still a lot to sort out with the Big 12 women's tournament, but Utah knows their path. They're the 6th seed, and so we'll learn what that'll look like over the next couple of days. So, an assessment of Gavin Peterson in year one, I think he's done, a pretty solid job stepping into the role of head coach, which, again, given the circumstances of Coach Lynn Roberts accepting the job, 3 games into the season, have never experienced something like that, a coach leaving that early at that point of a season to take another job. It was, surreal in so many ways, but I think Gavin Peterson, with this being thrust upon him, I think answered the call, throughout the year. And, I think Coach Peterson, there's plenty of room for improvement. As a young coach, he's got to sort of, find his path, find his voice, what he wants. He's going to learn and he's going to work through things. But I think keeping this team, on the right track, this is a good program now, and to keep it all together, I think is significant. And I think it deserves a lot of praise for what he's accomplished. And I think there should be a lot of optimism about what he can do in that position with the staff that he has around them, with the incoming recruits joining the program this offseason. It seems like Gavin Peterson is the right guy for the job, and I think that's exciting as he can continue to grow and evolve as a head coach with this program that has now reached, a place in college women's basketball where they're going to be competitive and they're going to compete for the NCAA tournament with, a lot of top programs. So, there should be a lot of excitement. I hope that the support continues to grow for the women's program, and they've got that thing trending in the right direction. Now, switching gears, talking Utah men's basketball, their 99-73 win over the Arizona State Sun Devils. And look, with Bobby Hurley and the Sun Devils, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bobby Hurley let go at some point over the next few weeks. That program has not lived up to the expectations that they had coming into the year. A lot of money went into that roster, and didn't live up to the potential. And I know that Hurley is at least on the hot seat. And again, I would be surprised if he makes it another year in Tempe. So, that program, they're kind of going through it. They've lost a number of games now over the last month, and so, still for Utah, you're coming off of a situation where, Utah athletic director Mark Harlan decided to make a change in leadership. You just never know how a team is going to respond. And I think, outside of just the victory in and of itself, I thought there were a lot of good things to take away in terms of what we saw from the players, and how hard they played, their body language. You could tell that this group still wants to play and still wants to compete and win, and they still feel like they have a lot to play for. And I thought that was really, really good to see from them today. So, Utah was led by Ezra Asar with 25 points. He finished 11 of 14 from the free throw line, and he's really cranked it up a level or two over the last couple of weeks, right? So, just to kind of give you some context here, on the year, he holds a game score, which is, a similar metric to John Hollinger's PER. He holds a game score of 8.285. Over the last 2 weeks, that's risen to 13.600. So, you're listening to this, you're saying, well, who the hell cares? So just to kind of, again, to contextualize this, Brandon Carlson, going back to last year, Brandon Carlson held a 13.033 game score, and Davon Smith a 12.696 game score. So for Ezra to be at 13.6 over the last 6 games, I think that, again, to just contextualize, comparing what he's doing right now over the last 2 weeks compared to, what Brandon and Davon, what they were able to do last year, I think that just it speaks to the leveling up that he's done over the last few weeks, and I think what's been the difference for him has been his free throw shooting. He's been a 60% free throw shooter on the season, but over the last 6 games, he's improved to 82%. He shot 82% over these last 6 games. So, when you get to the free throw line as often as he does, and he's averaging 7 free throw attempts a game, again, that's on average. Tonight, he shot 14. When you get to the line at that rate and you're knocking down 6 of those, that's going to lead to pretty efficient outings. So, he's really taken his game up a notch. And, while we're on the subject of free throws, shout out to Lawson Lovering. It's been a difficult year. Look, when you're sub 50%, it's a tough time at the free throw line. And he's struggled, and he's heard the boos, and it's gotten to him, and he lost his confidence for a bit there. But I think that that Kansas game a week ago. How long? That was a week ago. That was only a week ago. Holy moly! I feel like we've gone a month since that game. That's insane. Anyways, Lawson Lovering lost his confidence, and I think he obviously deserves all the credit in the world for the improvement that he's made. Again, it was cool to see the fan base, applauding him and showing their appreciation for the made free throws. But I want to make sure I give some credit to assistant coach David Evans, who I've heard has spent a lot of time with Lawson specifically, a lot of extra time outside of practice, on his free throws specifically. So, he's. I think that's really cool, and not just Lawson. He's helped other guys at the free throw line as well. So, I want to make sure I mention David Evans there. And I thought that free throw shooting has been a real difference for Utah over the last couple of games. And then, tonight, getting back to, what we saw from the team in terms of their demeanor, the looseness that they played with, I thought that really benefited a couple guys. Mike Sheriff-Joms and Mason Madsen just played with a different comfort level, a different confidence level on the floor tonight. They just played ball, and you could see the joy in Mason's demeanor throughout the game. He was certainly having a lot of fun talking and letting his play do the talking a lot of the time. And I thought the flair that Sheriff Joms played with was also good to see as well. He's that's always something that I think speaks to players playing with freedom when they play with that flair and just a willingness to make the flashy plays and all that. I think that speaks to a comfort level and freeness, and I think it was very evident tonight that those guys enjoyed playing that with that style, with that not carefree, but just just a freedom that I think was refreshing to them. And I think they did a good job too of not abusing that freedom, of not playing reckless, of doing a good job of protecting the ball and valuing the basketball, looking for good scoring opportunities, not getting reckless with their shot selection. And so they deserve credit for that. And again, I think that speaks to how this team feels about where they're at with the season. I think Coach Josh Eilert summed it up best that when you get in these types of situations, people, whether it be fans, coaches, or players, can look to the future and can become a little selfish and look to enhance their value for the program that they're currently playing with or another program they may have their eyes set on. And I think what we saw tonight was this group is still committed to one another, and I think that's exciting. So, to get a big 26-point win, it's always fun, and especially fun given what's transpired over the last week with the coaching change. I think that was really good for this group. And senior night is going to be Tuesday against West Virginia. It was a good turnout from the fan base today. The lower bowl was pretty packed, and I thought that was really good to see. And I hope that it's filled even more so on Tuesday night, because there's a couple guys that are going to be honored Tuesday night, Gabe Matson, Lawson Lovering, that have given a lot to this program. And so I hope the Utah fans show up for those two specifically and for the other guys that will be honored as well. But yeah, today was really cool to see. The Huntsman filled up, and so again, we'll see the turnout for Tuesday, which is going to be a big, important matchup for Utah. They're currently sitting 10th in the Big 12 standings, and the 8th seed isn't out of the question. And it'll be interesting to see how these final two games play out with West Virginia at home, and then on the road, the rivalry game on Saturday. So we'll see. But let's switch gears again and stay on the topic of men's basketball program. And obviously, let's talk about Utah's coaching search. So, all right. So with the coaching search, over the last 5 days since the change happened, I've gotten a lot of encouraging updates. And I think first and foremost, before we get into the who's and how things are trending, I think, I talked about this with Andrew Crowley with Runnin' Hoops on the podcast that we did Monday night, and just want to reiterate the fact that I think that this is a really big moment for the Utah basketball program. I think that this is an opportunity for them to really catapult this program into the future, with the right hire. And what I mean by that is, more than just improving the resources in terms of NIL, but, you know, the overall health of the program can really be bolstered with the right hire. And, that could mean, perhaps investments in the Huntsman Center, maybe a new arena with the Olympics coming in 2034. Perhaps there's an opportunity to capitalize, on that as well. And so, this is a significant moment to recharge the fan base and to revitalize the support for the program, because right now, it's not necessarily on live support. It was on live support a couple years ago. I think we all understand that, but I genuinely think that this is a moment, with the last 4 years, and again, just to reiterate, I think Craig did a really good job, all things considered. This may not have been entirely fair. He may have been a lame duck this season. That's always something that's going to linger. But I think Utah really stands to benefit. I think, it's important to understand that, sometimes things just run their course. And I think Utah sort of saw their ceiling with Craig Smith at the helm. And I think with a change, you can rebuild and raise that ceiling significantly with again, I've said it 3 times now, with the right hire. So, here's what I've got. Since this all went down Monday, everything has pointed to Alex Jensen. I've heard that Utah and Alex Jensen actually met up in Los Angeles Tuesday. The Dallas Mavericks were in Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. And so I've heard that there was a meetup, a get-together of sorts for Utah and between Utah and Alex Jensen. And I've heard that, things went well there, where it was communicated mutual interest. And so from there, I think, you feel good about that. From that point on, other conversations continue to happen throughout Wednesday with, top boosters, with, there was a conversation that I've heard between Alex and Andre Miller that happened Wednesday. And so, here we are Saturday night, and why hasn't this been finalized? Well, I think I've tried looking for the specific rule, but what I've been told, what I've been led to believe is that, there is an actual process that these programs have to go through. I'm not sure if there's a specific requirement in terms of, a coaching search, but as it was explained to me, like, it sounds like Utah does genuinely have to go through a coaching search. And so, there are going to be some interviews and there are going to be conversations had. Whether it's a requirement or not, I still think it's wise for Utah to talk to candidates. But again, to reiterate, everything points to Alex Jensen. And I think we are genuinely at a point where, Utah is waiting for Alex to officially accept the job. And I think there's a lot of optimism around the fact that, many believe he will ultimately accept the job, and that's just what we're waiting on. But regardless, Utah has to go through the process. They have to do their due diligence, and I think that that's a good thing. So, beyond Alex Jensen, and there's still a lot that I've heard there that give me reason to believe he will ultimately be the guy. Andre Miller, continues to be a name that pops up, and I think it's important to understand that Miller is willing to join the program. It sounds like, not necessarily in any sort of capacity, but I think there is serious interest on his part in joining the program. And that was obvious, when he wanted to join the program last year. and ultimately Craig Smith decided to pass on that, and still the interest has remained strong on Dre's part, and I think that that's exciting. So, potential pairing of Alex Jensen and Andre Miller at one time it seemed like a dream, to get one of these guys. There's a very real chance, very real strong chance, even that Utah ends up with Alex Jensen and Andre Miller, just based on what I've heard. So what does that do for Utah? Assuming that these two end up committing to Utah, I think what it does for the program in terms of revitalizing the fan base. I don't know that the fuel tank is big enough. I think what that's going to do to recharge this fan base is, if it happens, I'm excited to see it, to see it play out, what it actually looks like, what it means for the fans, how they, feel about the program, how they talk about the program, all of those things. It's going to be fun to see. So, it's what it does for Utah. Obviously, the resources that are believed to be coming for Utah, if that ends up being the hire, and regardless of who they end up with, resources will improve. But I think there's a real chance that Utah's NIL resources specifically improve by multiples, of what they currently have. So, we're talking about a significant increase in NIL resources, which is big. And, when you get that donor base recharged and excited to donate money, who knows, we don't know the ceiling. We don't know the potential of this program because the fan base has been so dormant, and lost their interest for so long. I think it's beyond just the NIL. I think there's a real chance to really increase the funds and support coming for the program, which is significant because that's going to do a lot for staff and other things as well. So, it could have a significant impact. Now, Alex Jensen, Andre Miller, those are not the only two names that I've heard, Utah is considering. The name that I've heard the most in terms of who is likely to have communication with Utah, potentially interview, is New Mexico's Richard Pitino. I think, and that makes a lot of sense. He's done a fantastic job at New Mexico of building that program up and doing it the right way, of recruiting, good talent into that program and developing over time. I think that's the sort of coach that, if things don't go the way of Alex Jensen and that, I think Richard Pitino is still the sort of coach that name, the Pitino name, it has cachet, it has value in college basketball, where there will still be a ton of excitement in potentially bringing him in. So, but another name that I've heard, this is the only other name that I've heard, is Josh Pastner, who is currently a college basketball analyst for basically any and every sports network, including ESPN, NBC, and CBS, and Turner Sports. So he's doing it all right now on TV. And look, like, this is a guy that, he's got a connection to Arizona, which is probably the connection to Harlan. He did a good job at Memphis recruiting, did a good job at Georgia Tech recruiting. The success there on the floor was wishy-washy at best. 5 tournament appearances over 14 seasons as a head coach is, it's solid, but only one of those came during his 7 seasons at Georgia Tech. So, again, I think of those two, obviously Pitino, and then by a pretty sizable gap, and then you're talking Pastner behind that. Those are the only 4 coaches that I've heard updates on. I don't think this is something where Utah is trying to avoid hiring Alex Jensen and Andre Miller. I genuinely believe that this is Utah just doing their due diligence, going through the process, actually conducting a search, which I'm hoping to gain clarity on, whether that's a rule or not, whether there are requirements for programs to do that. But as it was explained to me, it does sound like there are certain requirements that programs have to go through. So, again, just to reiterate, I think, I really think that this is going to end up with Jensen and Andre Miller taking jobs at the University of Utah. I've talked to so many people that I trust, people, tried and true sources when it comes to the basketball program, and it just points to this happening. So, we could see something with the season winding down. I think it makes a lot of sense for Utah to hold off on finalizing, announcing this deal, until after senior night. I think, out of respect to the players and allowing them to have their moment, I think it makes a lot of sense to hold off on anything like that. I think it would make a lot of sense to announce something, after the game Wednesday morning, and allow that to dominate the conversation for the week, leading up to the rivalry game down in Provo. I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. Nobody has told me that's when this thing is going to be finalized, but I've talked to enough people that have that feel the same way, that have talked about that sort of being the time frame, that it could all come together. And so that's where I'm setting my expectations is, we'll see something hopefully middle of next week. And I think, again, I think this is a big moment for Utah basketball, for Utah athletics in general, and for Mark Harlan specifically. I think this is a big moment, for Utah athletics. This, again, has the potential to really catapult the basketball program forward into the future, to turn them into a perennial contender in the Big 12, with the support that it's believed to garner, that the respect that it'll bring, and the resources that'll be provided to the program. Who knows what else might come for the program, beyond just the improved NIL and all of that. It's really exciting. So, I think this is such a unique time with the basketball program. Again, coming off of the win tonight, with the Big 12 tournament in a couple weeks, and the program looking to make a change. Mark Harlan is tweeting about the program. The Utah basketball Twitter account is actually using a head coach's comments in the post game and making edits. It just seems that the vibes have turned. The vibes are improving all around. So it's just it's a really unique time with Utah basketball. But again, I do think that this is trending towards Alex Jensen and Andre Miller, and I believe that we could see something sometime next week. So, if things change, if I get updates, obviously, I will update as well here too. So that's what I've got. Appreciate all you listeners to the podcast. Appreciate all the support. This is the Utah Blockcast signing off.